Welcome to the How I Became podcast, all about entrepreneurship. Hey, Erica. Thank you so much for joining How I Became, one of our very first icebreaker interviews. I really appreciate you joining today. We're going to dive into your journey as an entrepreneur. I know that you've shared a lot on LinkedIn about and TikTok on your story, your journey, the ups, downs, and everything in between. So, want to give you a second to introduce yourself, give a little bit of background on your brand, your product, and then we can jump into some questions.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for having me. So my name's Erica. I'm the founder and I like to say chief everything officer of BroDough, a functional snack company based out of Toronto. We have a edible cookie dough in the market in about 120 stores and we're launching across Canada. It is gluten-free, high in protein, has natural ingredients. And I launched the company in December 2019 and have managed to build a following of almost 300,000 people just across all social platforms and just building in public. And marketing is what I love and it's what I'm good at. And I kind of have this passion project called Grow with Erica, where I help others learn how to market themselves and their business.
Amazing. So with Grow with Erica, is that a spinoff as you've seen so much success coming out of BroDough?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I launched the brand and I really had no idea what I was good at or what I liked. And marketing is just something that I enjoy and I'm naturally good at. And I realized, oh, okay, I'm actually good at this. And I had a lot of people reach out for support and help in that area of their business. So I decided to start doing some consulting work for some other brands.
I love it. And what has been the biggest problem that you're seeing brands face, and what type of brands even are you working with?
So mainly CPG, like food and beverage brands. And I think a lot of companies struggle with having an identity for their brand or having a story. They have a product, but they have a really, really hard time communicating the story of the business and the product, right? So that's something that I kind of help them with.
It's interesting. I just did a podcast interview a couple weeks ago, and he was saying that it's so important to have a passion element behind your brand and a driver so that you have that story to tell. So I'm curious because I pushed back a little bit. I was like, I don't know that you need to have passion behind it, or if it can just be a business and it can run. So I'm curious. I mean, you had, like the bro identity, and I was reading that you maybe evolved beyond that now, but do you think that you have to having that passion is equally as important as just being able to story tell, or how do you find that interaction is?
I think it depends on the industry.
Okay.
Specifically, if I didn't have passion, I would not be here today because food is the least profitable industry ever, and I'm not
Yeah,
seeing any money in my bank account. So, if I'm not passionate about it, I'm not gonna be doing it, right? So, I think it does help if you have a lot of passion to storytell and put out a more, authentic message as well, because people can kind of smell through the bullshit now. If you're putting out
totally.
content that's not authentic, they can sense it, right? So, I would say it definitely does help to have passion, and specifically if you're in the food and beverage space. Yeah, it's helped me a lot. And you know what? There's companies that have built their businesses without leveraging their personal brand and without that storytelling aspect of it.
Yeah.
But I think the ones that do it and do it well, they have a one up over those businesses that don't because you're able to
Yeah.
build a more personable relationship with your customers. Sure, you can run paid ads on, Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and get an ROI, get customers coming in and buying, but how do you keep them coming back? And I think that's where the value is. If you have that story, that resonates with them and pulls them in, they're going to become repeat customers. They're going to be lifetime customers.
Yeah, it's true. So I do some growth advising, but it's more in the tech space. And on that side, I find that there's that passion element is very different because a lot of the time it's someone building a software product and the relationship is different than on the CPG side or even any other like physical item that you're selling. Like I find that sometimes the connection there is a bit stronger and the product market fit is different. And then when I'm working on the tech side to try to help them develop that brand identity, or how are you going to have a real connection to your audience but beyond just I'm solving this problem for you. And you see it so much more in a lot of the CPG brands because there's the problem that they're solving is a physical thing in their life that they needed to be different, which I find is really interesting. And a lot of the small businesses that I've spoken with, there is that real passion that the founder has, and it comes through. And I love going to the gym, and I'm always looking for new protein products. When I was looking up and following your journey for a while, I just thought that was amazing, and being a female in this space. So I'm curious about that side of it, because I think you're coming at the gym lifestyle from a totally different point of view than what I think is 99% of the products out there. Have you found that has been a detriment or a value add, being a female founder, for a gym goer product?
Yeah. It's funny, because the company is called BroDough, and everyone says it's so ironic because I'm a woman and I called it BroDough, which whatever, it is what it is. But I am a bro, and I mean, not as much now, but back in 2018 when I did compete, I was always in the gym,
Totally.
lifting, weighing, like counting my macros, having my protein shakes, adding protein to freaking everything that I put in my body. And yeah, that was like the term, like gym bros is interchangeably used. So that's kind of how I built my company. Was this product was for gym goers. And then I realized as the company evolved, moms were buying it for their kids, and kids would see it on TikTok and they'd
Interesting.
want to buy it. And now the demographic has kind of widened up, and there's different buckets of customers that I have. It's been interesting. I started out with having a very, I guess, protein, more fitness type product, directed towards that type of consumer who like is a bro, who lifts weights, who maybe runs marathons, really cares about health and fitness. But really, it's for anyone who just wants a healthy treat, right? And just maybe doesn't want all the things that come in the alternative, like the sugar and the empty calories and the like all the crap that's in regular cookie dough.
That's awesome. One of the challenges that I see founders have is that they have a vision of, this is how my product is going to look and this is who my product is going to be for. And pivoting that, or being okay with other consumers being interested in your product, is it's sometimes difficult to evolve into that. So kudos to you to like seeing how people are responding and who is responding, and just leaning into that demographic, because why not, if your consumers are telling you something or people are consuming it that you didn't think? Did you find that challenging to see that it was maybe broader than you had imagined in the beginning, or not exactly the demographic that you were focused on?
I had a little bit of an identity crisis, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
lie, and I was very stubborn at the beginning because I thought, "No, this is for gym people," like and then
Yeah.
I had mentors and stuff, and like, "Erica, like, this is the target group that you're going after, like, it's very small, it's very niche, there's all this opportunity," which is true, and as I started to get out into stores and I was sampling and even just, like, seeing who was purchasing my product, it's primarily women, surprisingly, and there's a lot of moms that are buying it because moms are, they're the ones who usually do the grocery shopping for the family. It's like
Right.
70 something percent of households, it's the mothers that do the grocery shopping. So, I think going after them and they like it, like the millennials, mothers, and even, like, a little bit older, but I find when I was just going after the gym goers, it was hard because my product is a protein product, but it's not like a Quest bar where it has like 20 grams of protein and it doesn't taste
Right.
like a protein bar. It's like in between. It has protein in it. It's functional, but it's not a fully chalky like 20 to 30-gram protein product. So sometimes it's hard to promote it when it's not like
Yeah.
a full, So yeah, so it was interesting going through that shift. And then also I thought, "Oh, okay, well, do I have to change my brand name now? It's because it's for the moms. Do I call it Mom Bros? Like what do I do now?"
Totally.
And then I was like, "You know what? It's fun, it's memorable." Like, and I sent out a bunch of surveys like asking about like what people thought about the name, and yeah, like the name was just it stuck and it was
It
very
worked.
memorable and it worked. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna change it. Let's just keep rolling with it. And we kept it as BroDough, even though some things kind of changed within the business.
Were there other things that you reached out to, I'm assuming your audience, because you can pretty much do your own market research to people following you, but is there other things that you inquired with them or learned to help directionally drive the business throughout the last handful of years that you've been working on it?
Honestly, the feedback that I've gotten from customers has been so helpful. And for example, I think we posted a survey, sent out a survey through like our emails, like our subscriber list, and then on LinkedIn, and we got like over 600 survey responses, which is
Wow.
amazing. People are willing to like donate a few minutes of their time. And we actually scrapped our old product and launched a completely new and improved one based on this feedback. And People wanted single serving, they wanted a lower price point on shelf, they wanted it to be gluten-free, they wanted the artificial colors removed. There are all these things that needed to be improved in the product, and this was something that I knew needed to happen, but I wanted the data to validate it, and after getting all of that data and sitting down and going through it, it made a lot of sense and what
Yeah.
the customers wanted. So we implemented all those changes. And even with packaging, when we were going through the packaging designs and we had different types of copy on it, and we had protein bites, and then we had protein cookie dough bites, and then we had just cookie dough bites. So I send out a survey. I'm like, which one draws
Which
you
one
in?
is
Which one
it?
would you buy? And then from there, we got more data. And then I thought, okay, now we can send that to my packaging design team, and then they can implement those changes. I think it really does come down to what your customers want. And if you have a good
Yeah.
relationship with them and you can pull that information out of them, it's so, so valuable because businesses are always evolving, especially with products that are on shelves in stores, because everything has to be dialed in. There has to be
Yeah.
no confusion. It has to be very clear what your product is. The pricing has to be right. The product has to be right. It has to be merchandised in the right part of the store. Everything has to be perfect. So if you can skip ahead a few steps and get all of that done beforehand, like you're solid.
Totally, and I imagine there's always gonna be an evolution of the product and the packaging and what it's gonna look like, and I used to work in brand management for a CPG company, and it's wild what an impact just different packaging can make because like, hierarchy of, are you highlighting this benefit or this, and what do consumers care about? And maybe it matters on the single serve more than, the 5-pack or whatever it may be, so it is such a it's an art and a science, but it's really hard to navigate how to balance the 2.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk a bit about I was, listening to another podcast that you were on, and you mentioned that you started the business with just $10,000, and especially in CPG, that is so difficult to do because there's so many startup investment costs and getting the product itself and the packaging and the website, and if you're doing in-store, making all these decisions, it's a lot. I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you chose to invest that first $10,000 because it's nerve-wracking when that can go in a million different directions.
Yeah. I did things a little bit differently, and I got my logo made off Fiverr for 50 bucks by some guy in India. So I thought, we're just gonna prove out the concept of the business. And if it works, then I'll invest real money into it. Right. So that's kind of the way that I looked at it. I think oftentimes a lot of founders get excited and they dump all this money into something and then they realize, oh shit, it doesn't work, or I need to change it, or, whatever.
Right.
You're not sure. You're testing everything. So I did that. I went on YouTube. I learned how to build a Shopify website, which was the jankiest, worst website I've ever seen in my life, but it worked. That's all I needed. It worked.
Yeah.
I took my own product photos. I had like a DSLR camera. I learned how to use Photoshop. I edited my pictures. They were horribly edited, but they were edited.
They were edited.
They were edited. And what else did I do? I printed my own labels. I made my own labels on Photoshop. This is wild. I used my Fitness Pal to calculate the nutrition facts table because I didn't want to pay for like a membership for Recipe
That's
Pal.
a a true gym bro would know how to do that,
I know, yeah,
right?
it's true, it's true. Yeah, it really benefited me, honestly, and then I couldn't afford storage for my product, so it was wintertime in Canada, and it's cold, so I just drove around with my heat off for 3 months and stored it in the back of my car. It worked, it really did, and once I started selling and I started getting some more, money, and I invested and I got, like, a freezer, so that freezer, I moved to my living room when I got a one-bedroom apartment. I kept all my operations in-house. I used my balcony for storage. I did in-person deliveries every Friday. Like, it was exhausting, but I would go on Facebook Marketplace and find used boxes from people that were moving and packing paper, and I would go to, like, corporate offices and go through their paper dumpsters and take boxes from there, and I would get in shit, but I would do it because it's free.
Yeah.
Boxes are expensive. I about to hit up Uline for a bunch of boxes. So yeah, that's kind of how I operated, was just like from a scrappy mindset. And
Yeah.
even with like marketing, I did spend a little tiny bit. I think like in the first 2 years I spent like $1,500, and that was more so on like influencers. I bought a pair of like Beats headphones for like a giveaway when I launched, which I think it was a really good investment. It really did work
Yeah.
for me. But yeah, I mean,
So how did that work? Like, you bought it and it was a giveaway, comment, share, and
yeah,
one person will okay, got it.
yeah, yeah, it did really well.
Yeah.
So I did that, and trying to think like, yeah, then that I did a little tiny bit of like I didn't have, like, anyone managing paid ads for me. It was like, "Oh, this post is kind of doing well organically, like, let's put, like, $10 behind it today," or whatever. And it works,
Yeah.
right? And you, like, target it,
Yeah.
like, whatever location or free delivery every Friday, and I'm like, "Okay, I'll target it, like, where I live," and yeah, like, it got to a point where I could no longer and there's another thing too, I would go to, a commercial kitchen during their off-peak hours, and it was 30% cheaper. So if you go from, like, 11 PM to, like, 6 AM, so you would save, like, 30%. So that's what I would do, like, when I first got started is just go in and
Yeah.
when no one was in there, you just put on a podcast or listen to Taylor Swift and then just, like, make cookie
Yeah,
dough.
build it out. Love
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
Um, it's hard, you're right, and I think in the beginning, often founders get distracted with shiny objects, or they're like, "I need this to be, like, the biggest thing today because someone might steal it," or you get
Yeah.
nervous, I think, about a I mean, and you are in a competitive space as well, but good for you on the slow build. Did you have during all of this, did you already have your brand, like, your personal brand equity, or has that also been building at the same time?
So I honestly didn't touch I think LinkedIn is where I started building my personal brand, and that was in
Okay.
2020, like August 2020. I launched the company in
Yeah.
December 2019, and I was growing the business and I hit a plateau. Like I literally couldn't generate any more sales. I didn't know how to scale it. And I didn't have any money for marketing either. So I thought, okay, how can I be different? How can I sell more products but not invest more money into it? And I thought, okay, why don't I just start putting out a crap ton of content and try to grow organically? And the way that I've seen other companies do it and be successful is like building in public. And I
Yeah.
like we talked about, and that's what I kind of did when I turned to LinkedIn. I went there for mentors to connect with other founders. But at the same time, I found that people weren't honest on that platform. You know, it's very shiny and there's all these great things happening with all these companies. You only see one side of the coin, right? The shiny side. You see the ugly, rusty, dirty side because people hide it
Totally.
and they don't want to tell you the truth. It's like, "Oh, we raised $5 million. Okay, well, how much equity do you have left? Oh, we did 10 million in top line revenue. Okay, well, how much did you spend on ads every month?" You know?
Yeah.
So, people are just not very honest, and when I started having conversations with other founders, we had a lot of commonalities and we had a lot of the same struggles, and it was really mind-blowing to me that no one talked about it online ever. So, I just started to put out that content, and it wasn't really my goal to build a following on there. It was more so, okay, this is an outlet for me. And then if someone can see this and feel less alone, then that's awesome. Cause it feels
Yeah.
really shitty when you're going on social media and you feel like you're doing everything wrong because you're comparing yourself to what's out on social media when it's not actually the reality or the truth. Right. And then, yeah, through that, I just started to grow my personal brands. And then, same with TikTok, I started posting on there in 2021 because my friend started blowing up on there and I saw her success with it with her business. And I thought, okay, I just need to swallow my pride and get on there and start posting content. And I'm really glad that I did.
That was my one of my other questions, because when we go back to storytelling and bringing a bit of the founder story into the forefront, a lot of founders love the product and love what they're doing, but putting themselves at the forefront is very scary, although I think it can be the best marketing investment you could possibly make. What do you tell yourself? Because I'm sure you still have a bit of that hesitation. I just saw you posted something very intimate and, like, your apartment journey and transition. Like, that I imagine is hard to post. So, what do you tell yourself to just be like, "Just fucking do it. Just press send on that post and make it happen," because then you do build that very authentic relationship with the community.
Yeah. I think it comes down to like, what is this going to do for someone else? Yeah, it's like
Mm,
uncomfortable and sometimes embarrassing and cringy. And I always tell people, I'm like, just embrace the cringe. Everyone
yeah.
needs to just embrace the cringe because that's just everyone starts at 0 followers or 0, from 0, and you just have to put out content and then eventually you're gonna get where you wanna go. It's just consistency is all it is, right? But yeah, I mean, it's funny because when I first started posting on LinkedIn and, like, being very vulnerable and sharing stuff, it was super easy for me because no one followed me, and I told myself, I'm like, "Yo, no one's gonna see this ever. You're fine."
That's
And
funny,
then
yeah.
yeah, and then as I grew and I started to get, like, a bit of a following and more engagement, I remember, like and I get hate, like, people write hate emails, I get hate comments.
Mm,
Yeah, it's a thing. And there was a period last summer where I was very, very, very scared to put out content just because of like a lot of the negative stuff that I was getting. I was getting
That's
so much more
wild.
positive stuff, but the negative stuff you really like fixate on and you play it like on repeat in your head a lot of times. So yeah, there were times where I sat there and I'm like, you know what? I really hesitated, but at the end of the day, it's like, okay, I'm doing myself a disservice and others a disservice if I'm not sharing this, right? Because this is the reality of it. This is my life. This is what's actually happening. And
Yeah.
even sometimes now, the way that my life is portrayed, maybe on Instagram, like my personal Instagram, or maybe sometimes on LinkedIn, if people don't like fully go in and look and see, it does appear to be different than it really is. And I'm sure it's like that for everyone because you don't fully know everything going on. Doesn't matter how much you share, like there's always stuff that goes on beneath that. But yeah, I think, the thing that really keeps me going and putting out like vulnerable content is like the responses that I get. Like I've openly spoken about like my eating disorders and depression and stuff like that. And I've had people message me like, oh my God, I felt like I was going through this alone, or I lost my mother to this, or I've been battling with this for like 3 years and I feel like nobody understands what I'm going through. And I think people forget that, we're human at the end of the day. And if you're putting out a post and say you have like 10 followers, or like 20 followers, and maybe like a couple of them see it and it resonates with one of them, like that's huge, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
people underestimate that, and I have friends who they tell me, "Oh my god, my video only got 1,000 views." I'm like, "Yo, if you went into a room and you sat there and you spoke openly and 1,000 people were there to listen to you, like that's, like try to look at it that way, and you might impact
Yeah.
1 or 2 people in that room or whoever viewed that, right? Like,
I've never thought of it that way, but that's so true, and you would be shitting bricks if you had to sit there
it's
and
true.
present in front of 1,000 people, but here you are behind your phone and you're like, "Oh, it's nothing. Where's my 1,000,000
Totally.
views?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh, I love that. So, at this point because I think one of the hardest things for brands to do is to grow their brand. Like, you can have a really awesome product, but if no one sees it, what does it matter? If that's your goal, of course. So, at this point, would you say your brand is almost bigger than the business itself? And how are
Yeah.
and if yes, and how do you rectify that?
Yeah, I actually had this conversation today. I'm very good at marketing. I'm not good at operations. So we have like marketing here and then the business is here. And oftentimes it's the opposite. So oftentimes,
Uh,
the business is too big and the brand isn't there. So you have all this product and you're trying to sell, but like the brand awareness isn't there, the community's not there and you can't sell it. So I have the opposite problem where I get people messaging me every day and they're like, when are you gonna sell in the US? When are you launching out West in Canada? When can I buy your product? And I think it's good that I've built the brand and the awareness, but the operations now finally I'm building out the operations to get things to be leveled. Um, so my product is refrigerated and it's really hard to ship. So I couldn't ship to the US and I think like 58% of our followers on TikTok are US based. I think 12% are
right.
Canadian. So I was putting out all this content and it's reaching people that can't even buy my product and they're frustrated. I'm frustrated. We're all frustrated. Like I want them to have it, but it's
Yeah.
just so expensive to grow a business and you have to be very strategic and you have to buy inventory and you have to have a go-to market strategy for each different market. Like Canada is so much different than the US and you have retail and D2C, and it's like, okay, you need to pick one channel, master it, then okay, now we're gonna go to another one. Now we're gonna launch another product, like you can't really split off and do too many things at once because your business will crash and burn. I definitely have built a brand that is bigger than the business, but we're in the process right now of launching our new product across Canada. So we'll have nationwide distribution. And then in the new year, we're going to be launching a new shelf stable product, D2C in the US. It's going to be made in the US, shipped
Congrats.
in the US. Yeah, so that's been like something that has been slowly happening. It's definitely been a long time coming. And I just want to like build that bridge, right?
Totally. And it's a unique problem because I think, at least with the clients that come to me, it's often the other way around. Like, I have this amazing product. I can't get it in front of the right people. Being in the reverse is also an amazing thing to do at the same time because I think you conquered the hardest part. You're working to solve the other side of it, which I know is very difficult as well. And especially in the CPG space. Are you still other than the new product coming out that's gonna be D2C, are in Canada, do you still have your D2C available?
Yeah. I've gone through so many
Sorry.
changes. Yeah, so it's I really, really, really wanted to keep D2C in Canada, but it's just so hard with my product. Like
Yeah.
people were putting in the wrong address, they weren't home, they weren't putting their apartment number, and then the product
Mm.
spoils, and then you have to send a new product. And I just it wasn't worth the headaches for me. So I thought,
Yeah.
okay, we're gonna completely eliminate that and then just focus exclusively on retail. And that's been our gameplay. And I thought about bringing back D2C maybe in the winter. So that might be something worth looking
Mm.
into. But again, when you look at the size of Canada, it's literally smaller than California.
Shipping is also
Is it
so
even worth it?
expensive.
I know, like,
Yeah.
from here to, like, Vancouver, and you have to express ship a lot of the times, right? It's 30, 40, $50, and then you have to have insulated boxes and cold packs or dry ice or
Yeah.
whatever it may be, so, yeah, it's a whole thing, and shelf stable in the US, that's where it's at. So we'll have the shelf
Well,
stable
there's a
happening.
learning.
Yeah, that will happen, and then we'll have refrigerated cookie dough bites. That'll be in retail, and yeah, just retail, no D2C. I would be so stressed in the summer as soon as it would, like I remember one day it, like, broke to, like, 40 degrees, and I just sent, like, a huge order to a store, and it was, like, $800 worth of product, and the package went missing during that day, and it was the most stressful day of my life. It was so bad. They ended up getting it, it was fine, but, yeah, like, I remember it being in the summer, and I'm
Makes
like,
your heart drop.
"I hate the hot days. I hate the hot days."
Yeah. Fair. I mean,
Yeah.
everyone in Canada is looking forward to the summer, and here you are like, "Please be winter,
I
like,
know.
where is Christmas?"
Yeah.
So, before you mentioned, like, as you're expanding that it's first expand within the country, then add in incremental products or different products. So, how did I mean, that in itself is a strategic decision, like, instead of doing one product and going not international with it, you're doing, like, different products in different regions. Had you had, say, a shelf stable product within Canada, do you think you would still follow that same strategy of distribution before product lines, or how are you making those decisions?
Yeah, I think it would have been the same approach. I think I'd have like my except I would do D2C. So if my product was shelf stable, I would keep it D2C. I would look at doing Amazon with it here in Canada, in the US, do D2C in the US, and then focus on retail here. I 100% I'm going to try to max out my retail distribution here before entering the US market for retail, just because
Yeah.
completely different market. It's more competitive, it's more expensive. There's just so many moving parts with it, and the market is huge. So you have to be strategic with how you tackle it, like whether that be going after maybe California, because that's where my demographics is, and people will buy this premium product there versus launching it in a different market. So yeah, so there's different ways to go about like every company is different, every founder has a different strategy. I think it also is dependent on how much capital you have and how much resources you have. I'm doing things a little more scrappy and have been very slow and taking my and even with this new product, I've been going to stores, getting feedback, talking to retailers, getting more feedback, making sure it's selling at lesser stores. And then once we scale, I'm confident and know that it's going to sell when it's distributed more. Because if it's not moving, they're going to kick you out. Then you're
Yeah.
done, right?
Yeah, it's really hard to gain that shelf space back. And I think one thing when I had my business, one of the mistakes that we made early on, so I had an apparel business and we sold it 2 years ago. But one of the mistakes that we made early on was getting distracted by the shiny object, like something that's was really fun and exciting, and you forget this is ultimately the goal of the business, and does this activity help you get there? So, do you have something that you keep in mind to not get distracted by shiny objects or goals that you're working towards to make sure you're staying on that path forward?
I have an advisor and we have a parking lot. So every time I have a shiny object
Ah,
come across my path and I come to him and I'm like, hey, there's this really great thing that I want to do. And he looks at me and he says, put it in the parking lot. And I'm like, okay. So it goes in the parking lot. Cause I think, when you're, especially if you're an entrepreneur, like there's so many things you want to do. You want to do everything. You want to build all the
yeah,
businesses and sell all the things and make all the money and take every opportunity that comes your way. But I think, there's a lot of power in saying no to things that aren't for you. And if it is meant for you, it'll come back at a more appropriate time and it'll be right during the time. Like last year, I know I'm really good at saying no. I'll say that. Like last year, we were presented with so many opportunities to get national listings and launch out west, and I knew in my gut, I'm like, no, this product, I need to make sure this product sells and fix it before we bite off more than we can chew. Because if I take a national listing and the product isn't moving, I'm basically screwed, right? So
Yeah.
because I said no, my business is still alive today. If I said yes, my business probably would not be here today because I didn't have a lot of resources or funding to support that. When we had to make a bunch of changes to the product. So yeah.
Good for you, like, for making that decision, but how do you have a framework or maybe your advisors guiding you on when to take that leap and say, "We'll fix it as we go," versus, "No for right now, but hoping that opportunity comes back." Because I think some of the fear from founders, and I know that this stems from when I get distracted by things, is that, "What if I don't get that opportunity again?" And maybe that is the right one. So how do you navigate that?
I think it depends on what it is. So if
Okay.
you're looking at, so again, in like CPG, like the food and beverage space, for us, it is oftentimes like a retailer approaches you and is, I want to list your product in X amount of stores. So you
Right.
can literally do the math and see if you can afford it and if it makes sense. And if it doesn't, and you don't have the cash to support the free fill or the listing fees and then the promotional planning and the demos and all of that, right? Like if you don't have that, you can't do it. You can't
It's
take
a
it.
no.
Yeah. But
Mhm.
if there's like other opportunities that come along and it makes sense. I'm really cheesy, but I feel like I have a strong intuition and a good gut feeling, and I always try to trust my gut. If something feels right for me, I say yes to it. If something doesn't feel right, I say no. And then I also have people that I go to and I'm like, "Hey, what do you think of this? Is this a good idea?" And that'd be like mentors, advisors. I just have a couple. I don't have too many because sometimes if you have too many opinions, you get overwhelmed and you're like,
Yeah.
"Shit, which one do I listen to? There's too many," you know?
Yeah,
So
you lose your that gut intuition. So how did you come across building a network of advisors or mentors over over your time? Because I think that's also something that founders find difficult to find the right person or the right fit or a few people, like, what is that process?
So it's a lot of giving first. So I never went in and like just DM'd people like be my mentor. It doesn't work like that. It
Yeah.
never works like that. So I think I went on LinkedIn and before I went on LinkedIn, I went through my pantry and I was looking at all the things that I consumed on a regular basis. And like one brand is like Love Good Fats. Susie York is the founder, Manitoba Harvest, Mike Fata is the founder of the company. So I started following them, started following a bunch of their connections, Tara Bosch from Smart Sweets, started connecting with all these people on LinkedIn and just engaging with their content, not like sliding in the DMs right away. And then I was like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to message them and be like, hey, I'm a startup founder based out of Toronto. I don't really know what I'm doing. I would love to have like 20 minutes of your time. Like, I eat your product every day. I'm a big fan. And yeah, a lot of them got on calls with me, and to this day, like, Susie's a friend of mine, Mike's a friend of mine. If I have any needs or if I have any questions, like, I can just message them and they're there to support. And then the advisors that I currently have, they came to me through LinkedIn because of my content, and they resonated with a lot of what I was sharing, and they thought, "Okay, like, I feel like I can add a lot of value to your company," and we became friends first, we started working together not officially, just to kind of see if we got along, and then they came into the company, which was really awesome. So again, just like tying into the gut feeling as well. Like I think when someone's a right fit for a
Yeah.
business. Yeah.
And what a huge milestone to have these big names. And even when you're looking like in the CPG space, there's definitely a few of those founders that you're like, oh, wow, like if I could have you in my world. And I think you've pulled a few of those in. It's a huge milestone. You put revenue and sales and all of that aside, just have being in a place that those people will dedicate their time both to you, but also to your business is just so exciting.
Yeah. It's really cool.
And so when you're thinking about the future of the business, and I know there's a bit of product expansion and geographic expansion, do you have a vision? And maybe it's too early, but maybe this is something that is on your mind, but a vision of the end goal. So do you want to keep it as your own business and you're gonna build it something huge? I think Smart Sweets is an example of something that never got is still doing their own thing or made good. I think they're like
Mm.
Riverside or
Yeah.
something. I can't remember River something versus getting acquired because we do see that the majority of things are on shelf or owned by like six huge company. So, have you thought about an exit strategy? Is that a direction you wanna go?
Yeah, I mean, I take it one day at a time, and I have
Yeah.
like quarterly goals and annual goals and all of that in place. But I think for sure the game plan is to have an X and make it become a household name. And yeah, like Smart Suite did an incredible job at that. They're crushing, right? But yeah, I just want to keep building it. I want to build an amazing team with great company culture, and I want to have lots of innovation. And the product started out as just like it was a cookie dough company. That's what I started it as. That's what it was. And I think again, like we talked about the evolution of it, the types of people that consume my product has started out as the bodybuilders and goers, and now it's the moms and the kids and even some dads
Yeah.
like it surprisingly. So it's pivoted and changed a little bit along the way. And then yeah, I have so many ideas for other innovation coming down the pipeline. And I just want to build like a fun, functional, nostalgic company and
Yeah.
eventually get acquired. That would be really nice.
It's a great way, for your brand to be able to, like, hit all those milestones you want if that's, like, the way out, and especially once you're starting to reach that success, I think a lot of CPG companies are seeing the value in an acquisition strategy versus just innovating in-house because you've already built this amazing brand and people relate to it, and all of those elements are there that to not start from scratch is an easier,
Yeah.
way for them, right? Okay, I've taken a lot of your time. I have 3 final questions for you. Hopefully not too difficult of questions. But the first one is obviously this podcast is all about entrepreneurship, all the stakeholders within the startup world, industry agnostic. What are a few founders or startups that you look to as super inspirational?
Honestly, so Tara Bosch is one from Smart Sweets. Like I admire her and what she's built. And yeah, I remember like buying her product in 2017 and when it was called Stevie Sweets. And I followed that whole journey. And I was also a part of like some of the focus group, like testing the new innovation before it launched into the market. And yeah, she's someone that I really look up to. And her story is super inspirational, like dropping out of school, buying gummy bear molds off Amazon, making these, like better for you gummy bears in her basement. And then now, like, yeah, selling Smart Sweets
They're huge.
and she's
Yeah.
Canadian and she's young. So it's super cool. And I have a mentor. His name's 80 for Sala. So he has a business group that I'm a part of. And he has been in this space, like, as an entrepreneur for, like, 20 plus years, and he started out with this small supplement store in Missouri, and, he would sleep on a piss-stained mattress in the back of his store, and now he has a billion-dollar plus company and has a bunch of other companies invest in and has 500 employees, and his story is super inspirational, so, yeah, I would say those 2 for sure.
Amazing. Second last question. Founders are always told a million different myths, often from people who aren't actually entrepreneurs. And the one that always stuck with me was that you can't sleep as a founder. Like you just have to work day and night and there's no time for sleep. And it's just a myth. Like you can still get your sleep if that's a priority for you. What are some myths that you are starting to bust as you continue to evolve in your entrepreneurial journey that you wish you knew weren't real when you first started?
I think, like, there's this big myth around do you see the bros online? They're like, "I made 100K in a month," or whatever it is, right? And you think I got into entrepreneurship and I thought it'd be really easy, honestly. I'm like, "This is great. I'm gonna have screw my 9 to 5. I don't need that. Like, I wanna be my own boss." Okay, so I'm trading 40 hours a week for sometimes it's 60, sometimes it's 80, sometimes it's like it varies, right? So I think that's one thing is, the misinformation out there that it's easy and you can just drop ship and make like 50K a day off Amazon and use Alibaba or whatever. Like it's not that easy. That's one. And I don't have time to work out or I don't have time to take care of myself. The big hustle culture piece of it. And I fell victim to that for a long time and I neglected my health and it really, really bit me in the ass. And you can't perform at your best if you're not taking care of yourself. And it's funny you talk about the sleep thing because I literally posted about that on LinkedIn today. Is I've been sleeping 5 hours a night for the past like 6 to 8 weeks, and it finally caught up to me, and I got very sick from it. So sleep
Yeah.
to everyone
You haven't
listening to this,
clocked
sleep.
yet, but
I know. I'm like hanging out by a thread. I'm like, ooh.
we're almost there, almost there. But yeah, I agree. And I remember with our business when I would be like, I'm going to bed at 9 o'clock and I'm waking up at 8 o'clock. And that's just how this is gonna go. And I would feel so guilty. Like, am I neglecting our business because I'm sleeping? And then you just have to realize like there's things that you're gonna prioritize and there will be things that will be neglected if you truly are investing your time in building this thing, but you get to decide what those things are. And I think choosing what you're going to prioritize is important. And that's why I think like it doesn't have to be sleep or it doesn't have to be going to the gym, which is what I think you're speaking to.
Mhm.
And last question. So this is me being lazy and putting the work on you. So my podcast is How I Became, and it's how I became re-energized, how I became an entrepreneur. And my question to you is at this point in your stage of entrepreneurship, if you were going to say how I became like what I am today, what would your podcast title be?
Well, that's like a very interesting question. Can it be like a couple words that I can throw in there?
Sure. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I guess how I became the real Erica, I guess. I don't know. I don't know how to word that. But long story short, I used to be very introverted and was very antisocial and very like I would hide from cameras if people took pictures of me, and now my life is the complete opposite. So it's like
Yeah, I would
so
not have guessed that.
how I became, yeah, like the real Erica, I guess. Like I this building the
Not
business is
camera
one thing.
shy.
Yeah, that's true. How I became not camera shy. How I became more, I don't know, comfortable in my skin. That's one
I
thing
love
that
it.
has been, yeah. So yeah, that's a
How
cool
I
question
became
though.
more comfortable. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. I mean, I was like, oh, how do I name these for all these amazing people? I'm like, I'm just gonna put it back
Let
on
them
them
do
and they'll
it.
name it for themselves.
Good idea.
Thank you. Anyways, I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to chat with me. I know it's gonna be so valuable for so many founders out there who are starting to grow their business or asking some of these questions that you've answered. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, this was fun. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you so much.
How I Became, a BloomX podcast, is hosted by Kelly Yafet and does not constitute a recommendation for any organization, product, or service. For more How I Became content, subscribe where you get your podcasts and visit bloomx.io to join us on Discord.